Who's in Wes Anderson's latest? Who isn't in Wes Anderson's latest? We're here to talk about Asteroid City, and Christy's going to lay it all out for you.
Yes, name a person and they are in Asteroid City. Yes, if you've not subscribed yet, please do. We'd love to have you because, of course, all the big blockbusters are out there, and we'll always talk about those. But then when there's a new Wes Anderson movie, we will stop everything and, of course, give you a review of that. I suspect that maybe more of you guys are interested in Asteroid City than you are The Flash this weekend. Anyway, knowing our audience, but let us know what you're looking forward to seeing and subscribe to us if you have not already. We'd love to have you.
Are you married?
I'm a widower, but don't tell my kids.
You're saying her mother died 3 weeks ago?
Let's say she's in heaven, which doesn't exist for me, of course, but you're Episcopalian.
This has a really interesting structure. It's like a play within a TV show within a movie, and the layers upon layers and the self-awareness of that structure. It's all very Wes Anderson. If you are a fan of Wes Anderson's films, you will probably love this because, to me at least, it feels like a return to form. If you are not a fan, this is probably not going to win you over. But I enjoy him. It is about a play being put on that is called Asteroid City, and it takes place in 1955 in this desert town, kind of at the connection of California, Arizona, and Nevada. And it's when these junior stargazers are coming, it's so him. Like, junior stargazers is the kind of thing that Max Fisher would have come up with in Rushmore, completely, with little badges and little sashes with like little tiny font. Anyway,
but now Jason Schwartzman's the dad. That's how
now
old we
he's
all
the dad.
are.
That's how old we all are now, right? So it's so sad. So a bunch of people all descend on this little town in the desert where a long time ago, a meteor hit the Earth. So there's a big bowl indentation. It's called Asteroid City, but the thing that actually touched down is a meteor. And so all these different people who are coming through town, or they're there for this little convention. It's a bunch of different people and their kids. Among them are Scarlett Johansson as a starlet with her daughter, Jason Schwartzman with multiple kids, who is there because the car broke down, so they're kind of stuck.
Well, no, one of his kids is also a junior stargazer.
That's right. I'm sorry. One of his eldest kid is, who is also the kid in 8th grade. You have Liev Schreiber with a kid. Tilda Swinton is there as a scientist. Jeffrey Wright is there, who I think is the MVP of this whole thing. He has to give this fantastic monologue. Everyone here is really up for the challenge of like the density and the speed of Wes Anderson's dialogue, but he in particular, he has a fantastic scene unto himself. Wes Anderson co-wrote this with Roman Coppola, as always. So they're all there for a different reason, and they're all, as is so frequently the case with Wes Anderson characters, there's like a grief and a detachment. And it's all these people who are struggling to connect with each other, and because they are all sort of trapped in this insular place, they finally, in their own understated ways, like begin to come to understand themselves and each other. Because this is a Wes Anderson film, there are no great emotional epiphanies. People aren't visibly all that different at the end than they were in the beginning, but they make these connections that maybe they wouldn't have expected. And this is what I love about this movie compared to like The French Dispatch, for example. I was not a great fan of Grand Budapest Hotel. This, for me, is his best film since Moonrise Kingdom, because once again, you have some recognizable humanity here. There is a feeling of loneliness and longing, in particular between like the scenes between Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman, you know, where they feel like they are really longing to make a connection with each other. And everyone is so damaged that they don't really know how. I think this is a big COVID metaphor. I think the meteor is COVID and everyone is trapped in this place and they're having to learn how to reconnect with humanity and with each other. I mean, like there are sequences where it's essentially Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman in Zoom boxes, you know, talking to one another through their windows. You know, one of them's here, one of them's here. So maybe that's too obvious a read on it. I have not seen Wes Anderson speak about that, you know, specifically, but that's how I interpreted it, is that like everyone is having this existential crisis and they're having to learn to reconnect with each other. Of course, the production design is like impeccable, and cinematography it's Robert Yeoman who shoots all of this stuff. And so every little detail in the signage and the costume design is meticulous, but doesn't feel like it's the do-all, end-all, be-all like it has for the last few films for him. I felt like the diorama has been the point for him most recently. And this feels like an exercise in actually exploring humanity the way like Royal Tenenbaums was, the way the Rushmore was.
I loved looking at this movie for sure. I agree with you. I think the production design is on point. It's always interesting when he has sort of a new frame of reference to kind of capture in these movies. So this is the first time he's really done the 50s. And I think he does that in a really cool way. I just didn't ever emotionally connect to any of it. And I don't know if it was because of the emotional remove of you're watching a TV show about a play, about a thing. Like there's so many like layers of like not really happening that kind of kept me from getting engaged with what was going on. You know, going into an Anderson movie, you're going to get that sort of dry arch delivery, but this one just didn't get me. And you know, you were saying before about like, if you like Wes Anderson, you'll dig it. And if you don't, you won't. And I so go back and forth with him. He's such a case by case basis with me. Like I love Rushmore. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox. I love Moonrise Kingdom. I liked, Grand Budapest Hotel quite a bit. And even French Dispatch was just sort of like kind of an exercise in style, but I had a good time with it. There were some moments that really popped for me. I love that cartoon chase scene that pops in out of the middle of nowhere. This one to me, I almost want to kind of put in the category with like Darjeeling Limited or Life Aquatic, where I'm just like, well, I love the style and people are coming and doing what he wants them to do, but I don't feel anything. I'm not taking anything away from it. I might need to see it again at some point and just sort of, know what I'm in for and look at it through that lens. But I really just found myself kind of like a little, when is this, how long do we, because I just I wasn't feeling anything. I wasn't responding to any of these characters as characters, even though the performers are coming on and they're doing the style that he wants them to do. But there was no pulse to this movie.
When it gets interesting for me, beyond just the superficiality of the style, is when the layers begin to crack, right? When the separation between the layers begins to crack and they begin to bleed into each other as it goes along, like in that third act. And so you see things like Hong Chau's brief scene with Adrien Brody, or you see what happens when characters begin to respond differently to the material, is what I'm going to say. Okay. And that to me got interesting because it's like, oh, shoot. Like someone dares to like break out of the rigidity of a Wes Anderson structure. Like now this is interesting to me. Again, it never gets chaotic, but it picks up, like the pace picks up and like the tension picks up of like, oh gosh, what's going to happen next, in a way that I think the intentional sedation of a Wes Anderson movie this makes it different to me somewhat. I like Bryan Cranston very much as the host of the show, the TV show that's broadcasting the
right,
play.
But he's barely got anything to do. I mean, yeah, sure, he's convincing as that, but he's doing Trumbo again. I don't know. But
I think they all do so well with this dialogue. Like so much of it is so dense and so fast. Yeah. Like Liev Schreiber, I kind of wish there was more to Liev Schreiber's character, but like he's really good at this. And like
the phone conversation between Jason Schwartzman and Tom Hanks is like sort of classic, like the pacing of how Anderson dialogue goes. And
the split screen and the fact that like there's a deviation within the split screen. I like that a lot. Tilda Swinton, I loved in this. Like there's a lot of his usual players, but there's a lot of folks who we have not seen before in a Wes Anderson film. And the kids are all good. Like there's some really specific stuff with the kids and how they relate to each other. And they are all kind of weirdo, brilliant outsiders the way like Max Fisher was. And so for me, this feels like a return to form in that regard too. Like it feels like the seeds that he planted with Rushmore, right? And how achingly lonely those characters are, and like the melancholy of that and the sweetness and ultimately the hope of that. I feel like he's progressively gotten away from a little bit more with each film. And this feels like a return to that for me.
Yeah, but I mean, like there are movies in which I respond to like people are dealing with grief because they are actively like it is dictating their behavior, or they are upset, or they like you sense the human way in which they are processing grief. And this is a movie that is about grief because it keeps telling me that it's about grief. And I know that it's about grief. And I know there's a character who is a widow or a widower, and so like and his stuff and how he's dealing with it. But it all to me just kind of felt like grief, grief on a note card, and it's just been thumbtacked into the movie, you know. And I never got to where I felt anything about any of this, but I never stopped loving just looking at it as a coffee table book, you know.
It's also really funny. We're saying it's about sorrow and longing and like the desperation to connect, but it's really funny.
There are some laughs, there are some jokes to connect, but I didn't think it was really anything except just gorgeous, you know.
I laughed quite a bit too. All right, so what's your number then? We're gonna have very different numbers here.
Yeah, I'm like a 6.3. Like you know, the craft is just impeccable. I can't fault it at all. But I just, you know, and I have. Look, I still cry when I watch Rushmore, and just you know, come back to the Five and Dime, Owen Wilson. You know, I wish he was writing these with Wes still. You know,
I'm gonna say like an 8.8.
Okay.
Yeah, I walked into this like burn me once, Wes Anderson. I'm not coming back and getting fooled again. But like I was on board for this.